All right, we are live with Tony Ricketts in the house. Tony, how you doing, my man?
Hey, Azar, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on here today.
Tony, I'm a big fan. Lawnline Marketing. I've seen your progress over the last almost 4 years now. It's been an honor and privilege to learn from you, getting the feedback from you, and a lot of the feedback that I've heard from you over the years, some directly, some working in groups together, has been actually monumental in building what we've built out. So you may or may not realize this, but you've had a lot of impact over the last 4 years.
Good to
And
hear.
so, I wanted to talk to you. You've built out something amazing. You have some unique ideas, and these ideas, and you're really bold about these ideas and the way you're running online marketing. It's a, multi-million dollar agency. It's been a fantastic journey. Welcome to the show. Give us a little bit about who Tony Rickett is and how did you come to found online marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. My background's a little bit different than most agency owner backgrounds in that I didn't come from the business side of it. I came from the ditches. I came from working in the industry. I was a code monkey and I started when I was about 10 years old coding websites out. And I just loved it. I loved doing it. It was a passion of mine. As I graduated high school, got into the working field, I obtained a degree in web design and development, started programming, software engineering, and I just really loved everything about the internet. And after spending so long as a software engineer, I realized that the marketing side is something that I liked a lot more. It offered a different approach to things, but financially, scalability, things like that, it was also a much better option. So I decided to shift to the side of going from software engineering over into the marketing side of the world. And when I did that, I looked at different industries. I did generalist niche for a long time. I tried real estate, which was a complete failure. And then I did lawn and landscape, which is where I am today. And I have a variety of reasons that I chose lawn and landscape. But I knew that I wanted something that I could sell and get results quickly from my clients, something where they would get a good ROI, somewhere where there wasn't a lot of competition, things like that. And lawn and landscape was a great fit for me. I started the lawn line in 2016. That was July of 2016. So
Mm,
at this point, we've been in business for about 8 years now, and it took us a
nice.
while to get our footing and get going. But once we did, we started scaling very quickly, and now, as you mentioned, we're a multi-million dollar agency now.
Wow, man, that's fantastic. Lots of action packed in those years there, just from your online marketing all the way up to today. But I want to go back a little bit, and I want to talk to you about what made you kind of, um, you know, looks like that there wasn't was there a lot of jobs involved where you were working, or is it just like you were in it for, like, even in the coding days, were you working for yourself?
No, I started working for a couple of different companies. So I worked for marketing agencies. I worked for companies that focused in custom development and software apps before I ever decided to start my own agency. And while I was in college, going to school for web design and development, I actually worked on a landscaping crew. So it was kind of
Nice.
ironic that many years later, I ended up owning a marketing agency that catered to that industry. But for 2 years, I actually worked a blue collar job uh, doing what they refer to as like softscape installations, where I would do landscaping beds and plant different trees and plants and things like that in people's yards. So yeah, I had plenty of jobs. I had my first job when I was 13 years old when I grew up in Lafayette, Indiana. My first
Mm.
job was tasseling corn. And that's where you would walk through the cornfields as a 13-year-old kid. I don't even know if it's even legal anymore these days, but you would go through the cornfields and you would pull the tassels out of the top of the corn, and you would. I think I made like it's like $4 an hour or something. You work all summer long and you make like $200. So that was my first job, and I worked all the way from the time I was 13 until when I started my first company, my first real company, anyways, which was in May of 2009. So
Mm.
that means that I worked for, and I was 13 years old. I would have been 1999. So I
Mm.
worked for 10 years before I ever started my own company.
But you started like way early, man, and I think that's the what I love most about the American work ethic, right? Like it's starting early on, like in your teens, you're packing like 5 hours of work experience, 5 years of work experience already. That's kind of like and I'm always really interested in the apprenticeship journey. Like when people become masters, like you are in your niche, you have to understand your calling. You realize that marketing is that calling for you, and then building up towards that, there's work experience that's like every step of the way. Even you working in Indiana, for $4 an hour, it becomes a stepping stone all of a sudden. Like you were able to connect the dots right now, right? So that's very important. And for some people, they might think that, hey, what kind of experience do you have? But like what Tony just said, like in his mid 20s, he had like a decade of experience already, kind of like Einstein, who started at 16 when he was thinking about the theory of relativity, came up with it when he was 26 years old, but he had that decade of doing the work, right? Like we think that he
Oh
just came up with it. There was like a whole decade of where he was just trying to solve that problem.
yeah.
So amazing,
Yep.
man. What a fantastic so now let me quickly get into my three more questions, because I've prepared these questions especially for you, Tony. I want to hear your insights on these things, which are really near and dear to me as well. So let's start with question number one. What's your favorite part of leading a marketing agency? What do you love the most about your job?
There's a lot of things that I love about what I do. There's some very much personal gratification that I get out of it. Things like my future is completely in my hands. One of the things that I often say to people is that I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 years, 3 years, next year. I have no idea where I'm going to be. I know that it's going to be in a better place than where I am now. And I love that. You look at people who are still stuck in their 9 to 5 jobs and haven't taken that leap for entrepreneurship and hasn't had that leap of faith yet. A lot of these people who are stuck in these jobs and can't get away from them for whatever reason, they know where they're going to be in another year. They know where they're going to be in 5 years, right? Me, I have no idea where I'm going to be in 5 years. And to some people that's terrifying, but to me, I love it, right? That's part of what I love to do. Now there's other things though that I love besides having an unknown future. Things like making an impact in the lives of my not only my customers but my employees, more importantly. Being able to give people opportunity that they've never had before. We've as of this interview right now, we've got about 30 full-time employees. The bulk majority of those are all in the US. We do have a handful of people that do a couple of things overseas for us, but we're an agency where we pay extremely well. We give people opportunity. We give people the ability to grow very quickly. And that's enabled people to buy a home in today's world that they would have never been able to do before. Even for our overseas people, I got a message. We have a team member that's been with us overseas for 3 years now, and she's out of the Philippines. And she sent me an email not that long ago that she was able to buy a home, which is not something that's very common in their country. And to be able to hear that is something that brings me joy. I've got people on my team that I hired in at $18 an hour at 20 years old. And today, 4 or 5 years later, they're making six figures. They're purchasing their own homes here in the Tampa Bay area where they never thought it would be possible. They're making money that and doing things that they never believed that they would be able to do. They're leading their own teams of people. I'm very much a believer in allowing people to do their thing, right? Hire good people and get out of their way and let them do what they do best. And that's one of the things that I live by, and it's worked out very, very well for me. And when you enable these people and you give them the courage and the support that they need to be able to grow themselves, it's just amazing to watch what they can do. And to know that you've played a part in that is very satisfactory for me. And then there's
Yeah.
our client side too, right? The people who we work for, the people who hire us that own these lawn care and landscaping companies. These people are small business owners. Most of their businesses are even smaller than my agency. And we've helped a lot of companies grow and deliver both time and financial freedom to a lot of these other entrepreneurs that are running lawn and landscape companies through our services. And I've had a lot of them have these one-on-one conversations with me, just just profusely thanking me for what we've been able to do for them, for their family, for their business, and all of those types of things. So that's where I get my benefit. It's for me, it's not the money that I make. That is great. Don't get me wrong. Having time
Hmm.
freedom, being able to spend time with my family and all that is great. But seeing the impact that I'm making on other people's lives, that's
Hmm.
where that's what really does it for me.
Yeah, I think if I have to summarize this, very well rounded, and I'm just picking up some amazing aspects about your personality. But I think like all entrepreneurs, you love that adventure side, and you kind of build your life around serving these amazing pockets of people, while fulfilling your dream of like leading into a situation with boldness, instead of what most people do is they'd lead with timidness, and they'd always stay at that job, and they'll be nice and cushy, and they'll be saving every
Correct.
single penny, not have. I've seen people like, having that little TV, having this big house that they're paying a mortgage on, stuck in that jobs that they hate, and not having cable, and saving here and there, not paying for coffee and stuff like that. Not, I'm not putting everyone down on that, but that's not people who you and I are. And this is directly from an author that I really admire, Robert Greene. Talks with the author of 48 Laws of Power. And one of the things he talks about is that one of his rules is that, lead into situation with boldness, right? Like everyone like kind of leads in with timidness, and both of them are okay, but more rewarding is your boldness, right? Like be bold when you're asking for how much you want for your pricing, instead of being timid and like cutting down to like the bare bones, right? So those are the
Mm,
things. And then when you come into that situation, you build this organization around you. Now you get to surround yourself with these amazing team members, who are being fulfilled, which in turn like really gets you the juice to come to work every single day, work with these amazing clients that you have, right? Like to perform for them every single day. So it's just a perfect mix of things. You know And we kind of have to build these things out for ourselves. So like if you're an agency owner, you have these crazy ideas and dreams. This is how you do it. Exactly how Tony did it. Combine his passion with the people and the type of customers he wanted to work with, and the results speak for themselves. uh, my
absolutely.
next my next question for you, Tony, is, um, you started off serving multiple different industries and niches, and now you're niche down to lawn care marketing.
Correct.
What are your guiding principles? What are Tony Ricketts' guiding principles for someone who wants to pick a niche?
Well, there are a few things, as I mentioned, that I looked at when I chose a niche. But I think before we even get to how to choose a niche, you really have to understand why is it important to have a niche, right? What is wrong with being a generalist agency and trying to serve everybody?
Mhm.
And where the problem became is that it's so hard to scale. It's so hard to get to the next level because you end up having to relearn everybody's businesses over and over and over again. Because what works in one industry or one business doesn't necessarily work in another industry or another business. As you know, I'm part of a mastermind group, seven-figure agency, where there's lots of different niche agencies that come together and discuss various tactics and strategies. And one thing that you'll notice is an agency will get up there and talk about what's working really, really well in their niche. And then when you try to apply it to your niche, it doesn't work as well. And that's because they're different niches, they're different industries, right? What works in lawn and landscape isn't necessarily going to work in plumbing and HVAC, let's say.
Mhm.
So you when you're a generalist agency, you don't focus on one specific niche. It's very difficult to create a marketing program that is effective, that is repeatable, that's scalable, and that's predefined, right? So that means that you're creating custom things all the time and trialing and erroring different things in order to find something that works. And when you find something that works, it's likely only going to work for that specific type of client. When you go to apply it to another industry, it's not necessarily going to work. This becomes very difficult to scale. This becomes
Mm,
very difficult to deliver consistent results for your clients. So that's when I realized I needed to find a niche to focus on. It has to be put into a place that it's almost like a product that you can sell, even though it's a service, right?
mm,
So I decided on lawn and landscape for a couple of different reasons. One of the things that I wanted to choose was a niche where I could bring my customers an ROI very quickly, right? You think of other niches like, let's say, real estate. If you work with real estate agents and you're trying to generate buyer and seller leads, when you generate a lead for somebody that wants to buy a home, it may be 6, 9, 12 months or more before that realtor is going to see a dollar come back from that money they invested to generate that lead. Whereas in lawn and landscape, let's say somebody needs to have their lawn mowed or their lawn fertilization done. They go to Google, they do the search, they find my
mm,
client, they sign up, and they make a payment right then and there. So my
mm,
client's making money right away from utilizing our services. So a quick ROI was one of the things that I wanted to focus on. Another thing was the size of the niche, right? I wanted to make sure if I'm going to create predefined programs and only focus on one specific segment, then that segment, that niche had to be large enough to be able to go after. When I looked at lawn and landscape, there's 5 to 600,000 lawn and landscape companies in the United States and Canada together. That's a massively large industry. So
mm,
that was one of the reasons I chose it. The third reason I chose is at the time there wasn't a ton of competition. Now, if you're still deciding if you want to go into a specific niche or not, I wouldn't even really consider the competition factor as one of your qualifying factors that you're looking at, because
mm,
there's always going to be competition in every niche. And the competition really shouldn't matter. You focus on your lane, do what you do best, and you'll shine regardless of how much competition there is. So I would, though, consider looking at niches where you do get a fast ROI for the client and that the size of that niche is indeed large enough for you to be able to focus and kind of
mm.
become a big fish in a small pond, so to speak.
Yeah. So great tips, man. All of the above. I want to ask you one quick question on this. Did you, you mentioned you had a job in the field like years ago. Did that play a part in helping you pick the niche as well, like experience within the niche?
I would say I would say it influenced it, but I wouldn't say it had a big influence at all. No. So what I did when I came up with my niche is, it was ironic. I have a business partner, and him and I sat down. We were currently working in the real estate niche. I used real estate as an example because I've worked in that niche and I know how tough it is. So we were going to transition out of real estate, and we said to each other, let's each come up with a list of potential industries or niches, and then we'll meet back up in a couple of days. Let's not tell each other what we're looking at or anything. Let's just come up with a list and look at these various factors, and we'll come back to each other and see what we have. We met back up a couple of days later, and we both chose lawn and landscape on our
No
top.
way.
So we didn't even look at the second and third choices. We just went straight to lawn and landscape because that was our sign that this is what we obviously are supposed to be doing. So
That's awesome, man.
that's how
What a
we
great
ended up
story.
doing that.
Yeah, I think those things are just like, it's a moment of culmination. And you mentioned this business partner, you still work with that partner?
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man. What a great story. All right. So, my last question for you is, what's the hardest lesson you learned when it comes down to building a marketing agency team?
The hardest lesson that I've learned is definitely the people aspect. Selling is easy, operations is hard, but people are even harder. Managing the people, and because to the people that work in your company, it's not their business, right? It's not
Hmm.
their company. They will never
Hmm.
work as hard as you do. They will never care as much as you do, but they are people. And that was one of the toughest things that I had to learn. About a year ago, we lost about 15 to 20 employees in about a 30-day time span. And some of them walked out, some of them were terminated. I will say the majority of them ended up walking out. It was more of a domino style effect. And there were a lot of problems that we had in our agency from an operational standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and a lot of the people that we had were also not great fits for the agency. They weren't the right people in the right seats, and that's
Mm,
one thing that I would say is the hardest to learn is the right people in the right seats, and that's critical.
mm,
So there is a job out there for everybody that everybody loves. You have to understand, how does your agency operate, right? Does your agency work remote? Does your agency work in office? Can you work at any time of the day that you want, or do you have a set work schedule? Do you have to run timers, or do you not? Do you have to do end of day reports, or do you not? What kind of accountability is in place, and what kind of freedom is there? Right? Everybody is going to have different things that they prefer as far as from an employee standpoint. Then it comes into the benefits side, right? How much is the pay? What kind of benefits are being offered? What does the company do for the employees to make them feel like they're a part of the company and not just another number? These are some of the
mm,
things that I had to learn, and many of them I had to learn the hard way. So to give
mm,
you an example of our agency, most of the people in our agency, depending on where they are, if they're in entry level positions, they're typically making low $20 an hour ranges. If they're in higher positions with more technical skills, they're typically in the $30 to $40 an hour range. But for all of our employees, some of the things are is that we only work a 7 hour and 20-minute day. Now they get paid for all 8 hours every day, though. They're
mm.
also our team, we give at least 23 days of PTO in their first year working with us. Uh,
Nice.
we provide lunch to our entire team every Friday. That's something that I've actually done since the beginning of my company and the very first employee that I ever had. The very first employee I ever had, believe it or not, used to come to my home every day and would work out of my living room. So did my second, so did my third employee. It wasn't until I hired my fourth employee and that my HOA started to get pissed off at me that I had to go get an office because I had 3 or 4 people coming to my house
Love
every
it.
single day to work. Well, on Fridays, all the way back when I had people working out of my living room, all the way to today, we will cater in lunch for everybody every single Friday. Every time we have a new employee start, we also cater lunch that day so that we can all sit around, break bread, and learn about each other. And we don't ever discuss anything work related in any of these types of things. After we get done eating, we've got games to play. We've got footballs. We've got cornhole. We've got all kinds of things that allows for a little bit of team bonding. So we do some team bonding every week, right? We
Mm,
do two different parties a year, twice a year. One is our Christmas party at the end of the year, and because of our niche in our industry, our busiest season is through the spring rush, right? When our clients
mm,
are getting back into the
mm,
group. So in the summertime, we like to have another party after the havoc has slowed down and the chaos
yeah.
has slowed down, and we like to just get together. So treating people like people is a big thing that is something I had to learn, right? Because you can miss that as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, because you're so focused on the things that you are doing and that you have to do in order to continue to grow the business. But if you don't think about the people that are caring for your business, then that's when things can start to fall apart. And that's where I made a mistake, over a year ago. And that's something that I've had to learn from. And I will continue to make mistakes, and I will continue to learn from them to become the best leader that I possibly can be.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest lesson. And thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it, Tony. That, when it comes down to team building, first and foremost, we're going to have to look at ourselves as agency owners. We're not trained usually managers or and then as agencies grow, right, like 20, 30 people, that's going to start taking a toll. And like, we can put systems and processes in place, but like you said, this is a human being, right? It's the people, right? People aspect is even more trickier than anything else that we're going to ever solve, especially as this team grows. So yes, we're going to make mistakes, but look at yourself, what the mistakes were, what, because every opportunity is, like you said, like what you learned out of this, and turning it around into, I think you've always had a great culture, but I think the point that you made was focus on the right people in the right jobs, right? So having that culture could sometimes misalign when you don't have that right fit of people, and that's when that incident happened inside your agency. But since then, you aligned everyone, and that culture is just going to 10x. It's going to take care of itself. That what you've built over the last 8 years, that's just going to skyrocket now with everybody, because everybody in the seat is going to be. This one question I've been asking Tony is that, like, apart from everything else, like, do you really want to be here? Like, do you want this? Like, and this is
Right.
what it is, right? This is, you just told me what your hard sell is at your agency. This is what you get as a package. Is this what you want? Because you have to absolutely want it. Like, after that, I can do everything for you, but that fundamental question, if that's not there, and if it's a yes on it, it can't even be a maybe. You really have to want it, right? And if you don't want it, then we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we get you to a job somewhere else, maybe, so that you're in the right place. But that's the worst mistake that you can make, is have the wrong people in the wrong seats. And really expensive lesson, seems like. And I hope that people listening are going to learn from what Tony had to share here. Amazing
Absolutely.
share, Tony.
Thank you.
All right, so last segment, three more ideas. This is going to be a rapid fire, Tony. I hope you're ready. Number
Ready.
one, client reviews.
Okay. So getting reviews from our clients or on behalf of our
Yeah, just
clients?
just anything, yeah, for yourself, for your clients. Like, what's
Absolutely.
your general consensus on client reviews?
Absolutely. So, client reviews, let's start with the agency relationship to the client. That is something that's very critical. That's something that has to be nurtured. That's something that you're always working at. It's like a marriage. So, in our agency, here's a couple of things that we do. First and foremost is our onboarding process. That's where it all starts. Actually, I'm sorry, it starts with the sales process and setting those expectations and letting them understand and know what they should expect when they're going to work with an agency like ours. Now, when they do actually onboard, one of the things that we do and that we're well known for is that we do a 4-hour on phone and onboarding process. And that means that we get on the phone with our clients and we go through every single aspect of their business to learn about their business. Now, most agencies, what they do is they just send out an onboarding form, fill this out for us,
Mm,
and we'll take this information. And of course, we could do that. In fact, we used to do that many, many years ago, but we changed it. We changed it because when we take the time to sit down and go through this with them, it lets them know that we care, that we truly want to learn about their business. And it enables us to dive deeper and ask secondary and extending questions so that we can learn more about their businesses. Now, after we onboard a client, we have a weekly check in for the first month. So every week we're getting on the phone with this client and we're reviewing where are we in the process? How are the deliverables coming? What are some wins that we've had so far? What are the punch list items that we're missing from you at this point? So every week, that new client is having a meeting with us and they know that we're on top of their account. Now, after the first month is over, we're going to meet with them every month on a recurring basis on the same day and same time every month. So it could be the third Tuesday at 3 o'clock or whatever works for that particular client. So we're going to sit down with them every month, or at least get on the phone with them, on the Zoom with them, and we're going to go over the details. Now, outside of those meetings, every week we send out a weekly email touch base update. So every Friday, every client of ours will get an email and it's going to say, here's what's happened in your account this week. Here are some of the things that we've done. Here are some of the wins that we've seen. Here is maybe some things that we would like to see from you. Could we get some photos from you, some videos from you? Could we get some client review lists to be able to build reviews for on your behalf? All of those types of things. So you have to nurture that relationship with your clients. If you want to run an effective agency, at least one that's selling higher ticket items like what we do, you have to nurture that relationship and you have to be um, You have to be engaging with your clients. You cannot just sign them up, execute the deliverables, and hope for the best. You have to keep that open line of communication. And when you do that, and they provide that information that you need, that's actually going to improve your ability to improve their deliverables and their results. So when a client sends us once a month an updated customer list that we can then reach out to them on their behalf and build new reviews for them, how do you think that impacts their SEO and their Google results when we are
Hmm.
constantly building reviews all the time for them because every week we're asking for it, right? But if you
Hmm.
don't ever ask for it, it'll be out of sight, out of mind from the client. You'll never do that. You won't get the great results. So there's just so many benefits that come from keeping a constant open line of communication with your client and actually invoking that communication, not waiting for them to invoke it with you.
Yeah, I think we kind of front load this thing that yeah, I'm gonna need a lot of client testimonials and reviews and all of that stuff. But the right way of doing it is focus on the actual job, building that relationship with the right client, and all of that stuff is going to automatically come both to the client and to the agency. And Tony's agency is one of the highest rated agencies that I've seen, especially in the niche for sure. But also, like, I work with a lot of agency owners, big agencies, small agencies, and we kind of not focus on it as much as maybe we should, or it's just not something front and center for ourselves. But Tony's doing pretty well up there on his Google reviews, one of the best that I've seen in a long time. So my next idea for you here, Tony, this is a good one. Team culture. I think you touched up on it quickly, but if you want to just give us a summary of the team culture in the next 30 to 60 seconds, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So with the team culture, I already touched on several different things like the weekly Friday lunches, the parties, getting together after lunches and having fun with the games and all of that. But one thing I didn't really touch on is the accountability side of it too. It's not all fun and games, right? This is a real business where that we're operating. This is a corporation, and people work better with structure, right? Look at different things like, say, the US military and the people who are in the US military. They always call each other brothers in arms, right? And that's because they have discipline and they also have fun at the same time. So, one thing that is required for a strong culture is that there is some structure, that there is some discipline, and that there is some accountability that goes along with it, right? In order to make people better, you do have to push them forward sometimes. So, like one of the things that we do is when we hire a new employee in, every 30, 60, 90 days, they're going through reviews. And one of the things that we tell them in their interview process is when you come into these reviews, we are not going to tell you and focus on what you're doing great, right? We're going to tell you on what you're not doing well. We're going to tell you on what you need to improve on. We're going to give you a roadmap and a pathway forward, what we would like to see and how you can get there. See, when you shove people forward, that's what's going to make them better, stronger people. A pat on the back is great, but that shove forward is what takes people to that next level. So when you can really help people with their personal development by having that structure, that accountability, that training, even it's almost like a tough love, right? It's like a mother father, or I'm sorry, like a father son relationship. It's not always as glamorous as you would want it to be. But if it is always glamorous, then that means things are fake, things are being hidden under the rug, and your team actually will appreciate you giving them discipline, giving them structure, giving them accountability, but also giving them freedom at the same time and allowing them to learn on their own.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you just made. Tim Kennedy talks about it in his book Scars and Stripes, where like he's from the special forces, and then going into MMA and all of that stuff. But like one thing that he talks about is that instead of being like when we call at work, or in his example, his MMA teams and the special services teams, like they used to call themselves teams, and not family and things like that, because like family, yeah, we have other dynamics going on, right? In family you can forgive a fatal mistake, or something normal that happened, you left the fridge door unopened. Over here, literally lives are at stake, even at your agency. right? Like people's livelihoods are at stake. And Tim's example is much more so so that was the point where you treat them, and when you treat them as a team and address them as that, there's some responsibilities and SOPs that come along, that hey, everyone has to be up to mark on their trainings, because we're going to fall back if we don't act like this. In the family, you can't do that, right? Like you're gonna have to let your son sleep in, but at in your inside your team, you have that option of picking the right people, making sure everyone's pulling their weight. So a great way of putting it, Tony. My
100%
last
personal growth for them, and that's what they need.
Exactly. So that's I think perfectly defined on team culture. My last three more idea is on-site versus remote employees.
Yep. So we're an agency where the very mass majority of our team is on site. I think we have 4 or 5 people that are remote, and none of them are W-2 employees that are remote. Everybody that's remote is going to be a contractor. And for me, that's just, I'm old school, right? And that was one of the problems where we had the fallout with some of our employees over a year ago is, they wanted to have flex schedules. They wanted to be able to work remotely when needed, or whenever they wanted to. And that's just something that I just didn't believe in, right? Remote work for me, I worked remote more than most anybody in their life has, right? I spent, before I ever had an office, um, I've had my offices, I think, since 2018 or so. Prior to that, I've worked from home the entire time. I can tell you that when you're in an office and you're have removed other personal distractions, I'm not talking professional distractions, because don't get me wrong, there are definitely distractions in the office. But when you
Hmm.
remove personal distractions that are at home, it enables you to be far more efficient and effective in your work. And again, that is just my opinion. And other people have experienced this differently. But what's important is that whichever way you go, the people that you bring on your team, that they are aligned with that vision. So the
Hmm.
people that I bring onto my team today are people that enjoy getting up every day, putting on their clothes, getting in their car and driving to work, right? A lot of people hate the commute to work, but some
Hmm.
people love it, right? For me, I actually enjoy it. That is my time to listen to some music. I've got a 25-minute drive from my office to my house. So I like to listen to music. I like to listen to podcasts. That's a half hour for me in the morning for myself, right? And it's
Hmm.
all depends on how do you look at life. Is your glass half empty or is it half full? Right? A lot of people look at, oh, I'm not going to spend 25 minutes, as that's a loss. For me, that's
Hmm.
25 minutes to myself, right? That's 25 minutes of, call it a meditation type style, even though obviously I'm not meditating because I'm driving. I've got a
Hmm.
million thoughts running through my mind. I've got
Hmm.
music in my background. I'm getting myself mentally prepared for the things that I'm about to do throughout the day. So for me, I found that's what works best and that's what's extremely effective. And because that's how I work, I want to find other people that have and share those same types of approaches. So the team that I have today, they all work on site together. We have private offices and big open workspaces. So there's a mix of different things. If you need to be able to get some quiet time, you can always grab an open office or a laptop and go sit somewhere quiet and work privately, or you
Hmm.
can collaborate with the rest of the team. I'm a big believer that there is nothing more powerful than putting 4 or 5 people together in a conference room and a blackboard, and you can see some of the amazing things that will come out of that room.
Hmm. Wow, man, that's fantastic. I love that idea. I think the 5 people that you have, that's almost new to you, right? Like you mentioned, the oldest employee that you have who's remote is just 3 years old, and I know you've been a big proponent of having people under the same roof, and I totally agree with you on that, man. Like if we can get more face to face, that would be amazing. But again, you're right. You're building your organization. You're the visionary. you build your dream, and then the right people is the question mark here.
Right.
And that's what Tony's been focusing on. If you can attract them inside your vision, that becomes their mission. I think Tony Ricketts is doing a phenomenal job in proving to the world, like he's sticking to his guns and building an amazing agency, a world class agency, and doing it on his own terms. And he's finding these amazing clients and people who have made his vision into their mission. So, Tony, it's been fantastic. It's been awesome having you here, man. It's been a pleasure. I'll
Thank you for
see
having
you
me.
in July at Josh Nelson's member intensive. Until next time, my friend.
Absolutely. I look forward to seeing you there, and thank you very much for having me on.